If you guys love Bad Day HQ, don't forget to check out Good Day HQ, available at youtube.com/gooddayhq. It features the best in reality television, travel shows, and just general fun stuff to bring a smile to your day.
Throughout history, people have built shelters to keep out the elements, from modest huts to the most elaborate mansions. Some of the most popular places to build are near coastlines, with their beautiful vistas and easy access to the beach. But when the weather turns wild, not even the best built houses can withstand the forces of nature. Darwin, Australia is a small tropical city on the country's northern coastline, far from the big cities of Sydney and Melbourne. It is known for its isolation and transient population.
It's an awful long way from anywhere else, thousands of kilometres from the rest of Australia. It was an unusual community to live in because almost nobody had grown up and lived there all their life. Everyone came from somewhere else around Australia.
In 1974, Darwin is home to 50,000 people, many of whom have been transferred to work in government jobs, a common bond that draws people together, especially at Christmas. Julie Tamo, her husband Heike, and young sons Rowan and Brendan are typical residents.
We had a huge circle of friends that were all just young marrieds with young children. We used to do things like go and play squash during the day, take the kids and go water skiing during the day.
In Australia, Christmas happens during the hottest and most humid season. Perfect conditions for a tropical storm.
Lots of lightning, thunder, wind, rain, heavy, heavy rain. Like sometimes you can be driving a car along the road and the rain's so heavy you have to stop.
Every year, between December and sometimes right up until May, there's cyclones gathering around the place. So there's cyclone warning, cyclone alerts. Usually just be on the lookout. There's a cyclone hanging around or forming.
In December 1974, a cyclone is forming off Australia's northern coast in the Arafura Sea. But it's a small, slow-moving storm, and experts are sure it won't touch the city.
We'd been putting out warnings, telling people it was there, but that it wasn't a threat to Darwin.
Jeff Crane has been working as a meteorologist in Darwin for 6 years and has seen dozens of cyclones.
Tropical cyclone is a concentration of energy in a small space, and it's a tropical revolving storm. Now, they're called different things in different parts of the world. In the Americas, they're hurricanes. In Asia, they're typhoons. In Australia and a few other parts of the world, we just call them tropical cyclones, but they're all the same thing.
But on December 24th, Julie Tamo is more concerned with Christmas preparations than the weather.
I think the last cyclone that really, destroyed Darwin was in the late 1800s sometime. And because so many cyclones came close and didn't actually strike with the full force, you got lulled into a false sense of security, really.
In a nearby suburb, Helima Douth and her children, Lisa and Simone, are also preparing for Christmas.
I really love Darwin. Compared to Sydney or any of the other cities, multicultural. And you just about knew everybody, because if you went to school here, you just about knew everybody.
Making the Christmas rounds that day is Mrs. Butler, a family friend. The children play with her dog while she and Helima chat. The wind is picking up and it's beginning to rain, but they pay little attention. In the heart of Darwin, far from the suburbs, Robert Wesley Smith lives on the ground floor of a sturdy apartment building.
This was a big old building that everybody sort of said, these are great buildings, a lot of space and really solid construction.
Newly single, Robert plans to spend Christmas Day with his colleagues, George and Madeline Parker.
As a couple, professional couple, they they were making careers for themselves, and George had just given his first scientific paper.
Like Julie and Halima, Robert is not the least bit worried about the weather.
People were blasé. There's this attitude that you live with storms.
Also near the center of town is the home of Edwin Milliken, his wife Elva, and their daughter Jane. They're one of the few families taking the cyclone seriously.
We talked about the fact that it was 33 years since the last cyclone had hit Darwin, and we reckoned we were about due for another. We laid in extra water supplies, we bought some gas, a gas cooker, and things of this sort.
As the day progresses, Julie's son Rowan becomes ill, and she takes him to the hospital. The doctor decides to keep him overnight for observation.
Which was really upsetting because it's Christmas Eve and he was pretty upset about it.
On her way home, the ocean catches her attention.
It was really overcast and almost getting dark. It looked unusual, like I hadn't really seen before, like it was boiling.
The Millikens have a study on the lower level, and they plan to spend the night tucked away downstairs, just in case.
The drizzle increased, but nobody took any notice of except that you knew it was the edge of the cyclone.
As night falls, the Douth family gets ready for bed. The weather is worsening, and Halima checks the television for cyclone warnings.
By then the storm was really blowing and whipping up and bashing against the sort of coming right in the back patio. So I got up and had a look out the back doors, which the sea was behind that, so you know the wind was quite strong coming from there. And I went back to the TV, there was no warnings on TV, so I thought, oh, can't be too bad.
But unknown to everyone in Darwin, the cyclone is in fact heading straight for them. Back at home, Julie tells Heike about the ominous water. Neither of them knows that weather officials are now in a state of panic.
We had to make a very quick decision to change the whole story, to change the whole warning strategy and say it's not going past, it's now coming back towards Darwin.
In the Douth household, Halima is getting worried. She's heard high winds before, but this time it's different. Seconds later, everything changes.
I heard a car going along Lakeside Drive and they had one of those loudspeakers, you know, that you speak into, and they said, the cyclone is imminent, everybody stay indoors, don't leave your homes, stay indoors, the cyclone's imminent. And that's the first inkling I had that the cyclone was coming.
Christmas Eve, 1974. In Darwin, Australia, the Douth home is about to be hit by a cyclone. Horrified, Halima wakes her husband. They decide to move the girls to their room and huddle on the bed.
It wasn't too long when it just got so bad. The wind was really, really strong.
The winds are now whipping torrential rain at 220 kilometers per hour. At midnight, Cyclone Tracy hits Darwin with a force that few have ever felt. As it engulfs Halima's home, she has a vision.
It's as though the Lord himself told me what to do. I knew exactly what to do, and I said to David, we've got to get the dining room table and we've got to put it in between the kitchen cupboards. So we all got under the table.
Seconds later, a thunderous sound occurs as their roof is torn away and sent flying by the cyclone.
You actually heard it peeling off just like paper, and that was the most horrific noise. I never actually saw anything fall in, or I just heard all these terrific noises. But you can imagine all the roofs and tin flying around everywhere. I had one girl on this leg and one girl on this leg, and I was hanging on to them for grim death. I thought, I'm not letting them go for anything. If we go, we all go together. You know, at least I go with the girls.
At Julie Tamo's house, Cyclone Tracy is just hitting.
water started pouring through the closed louvers like they weren't even closed. It just was pouring in, like as if people were tipping buckets through the windows, you know, with water. And water, the house started flooding.
As Heike tries mopping up the water, Julie realizes this is no ordinary storm.
I just had this horrible feeling, and I ran down to the bedroom and grabbed our 2-year-old son, and as I was running back up the passage holding him, the whole roof just peeled off. It just went rip, and it just ripped completely off.
The house continues to disintegrate around her.
Our bedroom blew away, his bedroom blew away. I just got him out of his bed by seconds before he would have been completely blown away.
Julie is hit in the head with flying debris, but isn't seriously hurt. Heike tries desperately to herd his family into the bathroom.
And he was standing with his back to the door, trying to hold it, and something came straight through the door and hit him in the back of the head. I was able to pull him into the toilet and get him curled around the base of the toilet. And so he was curled around the toilet, and I've got Brendan in front of me and my legs either side. And then Heike came to, and he's just saying, oh, my head, you know, and he put his hand up, he could put his fingers all in the back of his head. It was just all split open at the back.
The power is now out in the entire city. It is pitch black, except for tremendous bursts of lightning. The winds pound Darwin through the night. Glass, iron, and wood become deadly missiles as they fly at enormous speeds. Keeping low, Julie holds Brendan with all her might.
His little body was just like that, shaking and shaking, you know, never made a sound all night. And then the wall between the toilet and the kitchen just disappeared. And the fridge that was backing onto that wall, it just took off, like it just flew through the air. So the kitchen blew away, the cupboards, the sink, and we were just so totally exposed.
Holding on to nothing more than some pipes, Julie begins to fear the worst.
When I saw the fridge blowing through the air, I thought, that's it, we're going to die. You know, I really actually thought we were going to die. I think I might have even said it.
In the city centre, things are just as bad.
And I actually woke up with the cyclone howling, and the power was off. There was branches and timber flying through my windows, and one quite substantial piece of wood came through, and you know, it just missed me.
Robert Wesley Smith finds shelter in his kitchen.
Yeah, I went and sat behind the refrigerator, which gave protection from one side and the wall of the kitchen from the other. And
at the Milliken house, the noise is ear-shattering. In the basement where they have taken shelter, Edwin and his family have no idea what is happening in the rest of the house.
What we thought was a wall going must have been the final sheet of the roof, thumping, and finally it went and was blown off.
Then suddenly, all is calm. As quickly as they descend, the winds are gone.
From the sudden screaming fury, it was suddenly still and silent.
It went really, really quiet, but not for very long.
And then the fury broke again.
The cyclone is doing the unthinkable, making a U-turn and heading straight back for Darwin. All anyone can do is hold on and pray. Christmas 1974 is a day the people of Darwin, Australia will never forget. At midnight, Cyclone Tracy, the most violent storm in the city's history, rips through town, then turns around and levels almost everything still standing. The next morning, Halima Douth and her family crawl out from under the kitchen table, exhausted and shaken, completely unprepared for the scene around them.
Just like what pictures you see of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. You know, it just looked like a bomb blast.
Nearly all the houses in Darwin are destroyed. Incredibly, Edwin Milliken's home is relatively unscathed.
It wasn't quite as bad as it sounded, actually. When we got up there, the glass louvers were gone, but the structure of the house was still there.
His neighbors aren't as lucky.
I haven't felt so close to weeping when I saw the devastation of the houses. The whole thing that came through to me was that it seemed obscene.
Julie Tamo and her family survived the night in the bathroom. Heike's head is no longer bleeding, but they have no idea what has happened to their other son, who spent the night in hospital.
But all this time, of course, I was thinking about Rowan in the hospital.
With their car destroyed by fallen trees, a friend drives the Tamo family to the hospital. The road is a treacherous obstacle course.
There was just rubbish all over the streets, but you just went over the rubbish, flat tyres, the lot.
When they arrive at the hospital, they learn that the children have escaped harm by being moved to the lowest floor. Rowan is safe and feeling better, but has little idea what has transpired.
How you could explain to him that the whole town's basically been destroyed, from what we could see anyway.
Many of the dead and injured are arriving at the hospital. One of them is Halima's friend, Mrs. Butler. It is a particularly sad and gruesome sight.
Apparently her dog ran out of the house, and she must have loved her dog so much. She went out after the dog, and they found her with she was decapitated.
Sheltered by the strong walls of his older apartment building, Robert Wesley Smith emerges to help those he can.
I went up to the police station and the hospital to see if I could help.
Robert soon learns that his friends George and Madeline are also victims of Cyclone Tracy, struck by objects flying through the air.
I think they tried to get down into their car, but they didn't make it, and the guy got hit with a flying steel picket, and she's obviously been hit by one of these sheets of flying iron.
There was a lot of corrugated iron, and you could imagine corrugated sheeting iron is like, you know, flying saw blades.
Although Madeline's injuries are severe, she survives. George does not. There is no power, no water, and no shelter. Devastation is everywhere, but the people of Darwin rally as best they can.
There was a lot of comradeship developed between people, you know, how it does in adversity, and brought people together.
Soon, the military arrives. For health and safety reasons, officials decide to evacuate 25,000 people. They won't be allowed to return for months.
The infrastructure just couldn't sustain the people at the time. I think if too many people had stayed there for too long, things like dysentery and you know, other diseases could have been prevalent, especially how hot it was.
When it is all over, 65 people are dead and hundreds are injured. Damage is estimated at close to $1 billion US. An inquiry finds that there are major problems with housing construction, most of it built by and for government workers.
These houses were not properly built, they were not properly braced, even to the design criteria that was there. And once one house starts to collapse, you know, that hits another, and it's like a pack of cards. So those new suburbs were devastated.
Blame is also directed at city officials who didn't warn people in time. They in turn point to unreliable technology.
We had a radar which can't see cyclones until they get to within a couple of 100 kilometres. In fact, the way to see what was happening on a radar was very primitive.
After the inquiry, changes are made. Technology and warning systems are continuously updated.
These days, if you want to see what a weather radar is doing, you log onto the web and there it is.
Tougher housing codes are also put in place. many of which are adopted in other cyclone-prone areas of Australia. The people of Darwin rebuild their houses, but it takes a long time to rebuild their lives.
There was a lot of tragedy, and it was very traumatic afterwards for people. I know myself that I probably went through 3 months of, I suppose, what you'd call some sort of nervous breakdown.
In my case, the structure of the building was solid. In a way, I feel, I had a pretty light experience of the actual cyclone. For some people, it was a real horror story, and some people were so shocked because maybe they're hiding there with a child, and some get killed and some get sucked out into the air and that sort of thing, and the house falls down around them. That's a horror story that you can't blame anyone from being shocked for the rest of their lives, really.
They really never ever spoke about the cyclone.
Halima Dowth's daughters Lisa and Simone and her husband David have done their best to push Cyclone Tracy from their minds.
And I've never even asked them what they actually remember or if they remember anything. And David prefers to forget about it.
And in the end, Darwin's Cyclone Tracy is recorded as one of the worst disasters in Australian history, forever changing the lives of those who encountered it.
I'll never ever take a cyclone lightly again. I'll never ever think, that it's nothing. It was just unbelievable.
If you guys are preparing for the apocalypse or want to survive a disaster or just want to have a really awesome camping trip, check out the products we have in the links below. Just by shopping for these products, you help support Bad Day HQ. In fact, any shopping you do in Amazon while going through these links will actually help us produce more great content for you guys.